This is TJ with Tech Made Easy. Welcome to the channel. My channel is dedicated to making things affordable, practical, and easy. And welcome to my video on 1440p gaming at 60 frames per second or higher in high or ultra high mode for $530. I'm really excited about this video because I'm going to be introducing what I consider one of the most versatile workstations ever made. So we are going to be working with a pre-built system, but this pre-built system is one of the most flexible systems that there is out there for gaming as far as upgrading the CPU, and it can run almost every modern day card out there. And when I say modern day card, if you can get one. But I'm really excited because it's just so versatile of a machine that makes it available to upgrade in the future if you want to get into 4K gaming or one of the new video cards coming out. What I'm going to do first though is I really want to go into the bench first. So I'm going to do this reverse. I'm going to show the benchmark in this. And one of the things about when I create these videos is I always try to get people in systems that are upgradable. Whether they want to start just getting into basic esports gaming, Fortnite, CSGO, to more of your AAA gaming in 1080p, and now in the 1440p gaming. I really like to put them in systems that they can upgrade, and that the upgrade path is easy and has a lot of flexibility on what cards you can run with it. So let's go ahead and go to the benches, and then we'll go ahead, we'll look at the system, and then we'll look at the cost breakdown, how everything breaks down to that $530.
Let's go into the games tested. We got Fortnite, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege, World of Tanks Encore, Grand Theft Auto, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Far Cry 5, Assassin's Creed Origins, Red Dead Redemption, and Watch Dogs Legions, and Borderlands 3. When I'm doing these tests, I like to use programs that have built-in benches just so it makes it easier for consistency. Fortnite doesn't have one, but it does have the gameplay that you can record, so I use that, and just for consistency I'll record some gameplay and use that as my testing. So let's go to the benches. Benchmarks here. So Fortnite, I've done 1080p Pro, and everybody has Pro settings a little different, but I got 245, and I tested everything in 1080p and 1440p just so you can see the performance of the card in 1080p in case you want to use 1080p with the card. So high, I got 137, and Epic 1080p 99. In 1440p 248, actually got a little bit better. And then high, I got 136, almost the same. Now, one of the reasons why I like to throw in Fortnite is because it's gotten harder to, or it's been more challenging for the GPUs as they come out with newer versions, especially in the Epic mode. And you'll notice here 1440p, we're at 64 frames per second. So then Rainbow Six Siege, I only test in ultra high mode. So we've got 1080p Ultra 212, and then 1440p Ultra 160. World of Tanks, same thing. I only test in Ultra mode. And part of the reasons why is these games are just efficient on the graphics card. And so 1080p Ultra 179 and 114 in 1440p. Grand Theft Auto, I think it has a frame rate limiter. I think I remember hearing that you can only go so high and it kind of shuts you off. So both of these got the same score in 1080p and in 1440p. So then Lara Croft Tomb Raider, I've got 89 in high mode, 1080p high, Ultra 84, 64 in 1440p high, and 57 in 1440 Ultra. Far Cry 5, 87, 82, 75 in 1440p high, and 73 in 1440p Ultra. Assassin's Creed Origins, 79 and 1080p high, Ultra 69, and 1440p high 67, and 58 in Ultra. Now, what you're going to see here on these next games is these games are a little, even a little harder than the ones we just went over. So Red Dead Redemption 75 and 1080p high, and 1080p Ultra 63. Now let me just, well, 1440p high 56 and 1440p Ultra 51. Now let me just say, we are going to be able to bump these up, but again, this system is, I'm putting it at a minimum that you would want to start AAA gaming. But let me just explain on Red Dead Redemption. Some of these games don't have presets for high and ultra high and low. So in Red Dead Redemption, the way I just use the default for ultra, but in high I change all of the ultra settings to high, and I turn off motion blur. So, but let's move on to Watchdog Legions 1080, and these ones I did medium and high instead of high and ultra, and we'll talk about that. So we got Watchdog Legions medium 75, high 69, 1440p medium 63, and 1440p high 55. Badlands 3 77 and 1080p medium, and then 68 in high, 1440p medium, 73 and 54 in high. So and the other thing is too, just so you know, for GTA 5 when I'm testing it, because it again doesn't have different presets, what I do is I just go in and change the long shadows to on, high resolution shadows on, high detail streaming flying on, and then I extend the detail scaling to about 60% to get a ultra high mode. But the reason why I've chose these games is there's going to be a lot of AAA games that you're going to fall in the 100 frames per second 1440p high and ultra high mode, like your driving games like F1 2020, Forenza 4. In fact, F1 2020, I did it in ultra high and got over 90 frames per second. So that's why I chose. So not all of your AAA games are going to be as hard on the graphics card as these ones here. So I just tried to do a little bit of a mix. So let's talk about how we can raise these 1440p frames per second up. So this is the deal. Whenever I use graphics cards, I always overclock them. And so what we're going to see next is we're going to see the results after overclocking, and then I have a support video that will show you how to overclock the card that we're using in this build, or this system I should say. So let's just go ahead and look at that. So I didn't test all of these in overclock mode, but so Rainbow Six Siege, so I didn't test Fortnite. Rainbow Six Siege, we went from 212 to 221, and then 160 to 172 in 1440p. Actually, again, I think there is some type of frame limiter on GTA 5, because I did do this in overclock and I got the exact same figures, 100 and 73 on all of these. So Lara Croft Tomb Raider 1080p high, we went from 89 to 92, 84 to 87, and then of course 1080p high, we went from 64 to 73. That's quite a bit of a jump. And then ultra, we went from 57 to 65. I didn't test any overclocking with Far Cry 5, but Assassin's Creed Odyssey 1080p high, we just went from 79 to 80. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes when you overclock, you may not get a big bump, and so just realize that happens. Even here, we didn't get a huge bump, but we start to see a little bit bigger bump once we get to 1440p high and ultra. You can see we increased our frames per second there, and went from 58 to 63 in ultra. And then Red Dead Redemption, we went from 75 to 83 in high, 1080p, 63 to 76 in ultra, 1080p, and 1440p high, we went from 56 to 63, and then ultra 51 to 57. Before I get into these other games where we only use medium and high, so most of these games, or I should say, depending on the game, I wouldn't recommend always running 1440p in high. And so you're just going to get a better performance, or not high, excuse me. In a lot of these games, the AAA games, and some of the AAA games, I wouldn't run 1440p ultra, just because you're pushing the card. And so so let's talk about Watchdog Legions. Again, overclocking here, you can see, I'm just going to go to the 1440p. We went from 63 to 67 medium, and then 55 to 60 in high. And then Badlands 3, and Badlands 3, I don't know if it was a driver problem, because I updated the driver before I started doing this, but it would not allow me to overclock at all. When I'd run the self bench, it would just crash. It would run it through, but then it would crash at the end when it got to the stats. So, but what I did do here, and this is what I want to talk about, how you can get even more frames per second out of your card in 1080 or 1440p, is one of the things that is challenging in Badlands 3, especially when you go into the higher modes like 1440p high and ultra, is the fog. If you turn the fog off, and that's all I did here to go from 54 to 65, I just turned the fog off. And so in a lot of these games, if you want in your textures, you can turn down some of those to give you a little bit more better frame rates. And so that's what I did here in Badlands 3. In fact, in Badlands 3 1440p ultra, I did get 50 frames per second by turning off the fog and motion blur. So let's move on. Now, normally, what I did here, and this is going to become really relevant once you see the system and what CPU we put in. And again, there are a plethora of CPUs that you can put in the system, and so it is upgradable. But let's just, while I was doing this, I went on, because I don't have a plethora of machines around. Sometimes I'll go on and I'll see if someone has done the same testing that I've done, and I did find a few people that have done Watchdog Legends, and they've done it with a Ryzen 5 2600. And so I just wanted to show you the difference here. So in the red, obviously that's the Ryzen 5. The blue is the one that I'm running, and you'll notice here, and this is really going to become significant when we talk about the system. So they got 75 in 1080p medium, 79 is my result, 67 there's, 73 mine, and then in very high, and I didn't do all these modes in Watchdog Legions, but they does have a very high, 62 and then 66, 48 and then 50 in ultra, 1080p ultra. So in 1440p medium, 59 to 63, 52 to 55 in high, and then very high, 44 to 47, 33 to 36. So again, I'm going to talk why this is relevant. So let's go ahead and look at the card that we put in here. We put in the GTX 1070 Ti, and then the system itself is the HP Z420 and the version 2. It's very important to know the version 2 on this. So let's go ahead and talk about this system and open up the case real quick, and then we'll come back to the benches and pricing.
Okay, let's talk about the HP Z420. This is probably the most versatile professional workstation I believe ever made. Now, does that mean it's the most powerful? No, there's another one, which is this runs on the X79 platform. There is the X99 platform. So the amount of CPUs that you can run on this platform and GPUs you can run on this platform for the price, it just makes it a really flexible system. Not only is it a flexible system for that, but it makes a great file server. I have a series coming up where I'll turn this into a file server. Using this, it'll get installed here, and you can get one of these in a 5 or a 4 bay. That's coming up in some of my other videos coming up. So it's just a really versatile workstation. This is HP's professional workstation. What makes this different than a consumer grade workstation is they use this for AutoCAD, they use it for video editing, for animation, anything also that took really high computations. And Dell and Lenovo have their own versions of this workstation as well. And so they make great gaming PCs because they run on Xeons. And in the Xeons, this takes Xeon version 1 and version 2 of the 2600 series and the 1600 series. And there's just a lot of CPUs that you can run into this system. And this system here, if you're looking at comparing as far as the CPUs that are available in here, you're talking comparable up to an i7 8700K, maybe even a little higher, because there are some of these CPUs that you can get that are 14 cores, which means 28 multi-cores. But the CPU that we're using on this system is the E5 2650 V2. It's a $3,500 chip, and as you've seen already, and we're going to address this a little bit more, is that it makes a great 2K gaming CPU with the right card. And again, the card that we put in here is the 1070 Ti. If you're not familiar with Xeons, those are Intel's professional workstation server CPUs. They're usually really expensive. In other words, this $35 CPU used to be a $1,300 CPU. Some of the other CPUs that have come down in price on this one used to be $2,000 CPUs. And so, but they make great gaming CPUs, and they're still relevant in 2021. Even though this system here was a 2013 system, the version 2 of this workstation came out in 2013. The version 1 came out in 2011. And I would only recommend getting the version 2. And when you go onto eBay and look for this, you have to put in HP Z420 V2. Not that that's a model number for this. The model number is the HP Z420, but the V2 means that there's a V2 chip on here, so it's compatible with the V2 CPUs. And you can run both the V1 and V2 on this CPU. Unfortunately, they didn't come out with a different model number when they came out when they made them available for the version 2s. So, but this is just a great workstation. It's a long workstation, so you can fit almost any graphic card in here, and it runs with almost any modern graphic card. There's a few that you wouldn't want to run in here, and we'll go over that when we go back to the slides. I'll show you which, but most of your video cards you can run in here today. Now, the reason why this system is sitting here is that I do have a video coming up where we're going to be transferring the components in here. I'm putting them into this gaming case. I personally am fine with this case. In fact, this case is built like a tank. But later on, say you bought one of these and you wanted to have a gaming case, I'm just going to show how to do that. My kids like the looks of the gaming cases better. I'm personally okay with this, and actually for me, I like having a DVD here because I do a lot of video ripping, so I don't mind this look. But let's go ahead and just take a quick look inside the case. This video is not a video on how to install a hard drive, how to install RAM, CPU, the video card. I have a separate video for that. It will be in the link below. I'll show you how to install or upgrade the RAM, upgrade the CPU, and then it'll be on multiple video cards, because some video cards take a 6-pin, 8-pin, maybe an 8-pin and a 6-pin combination, or 2 8-pins. And so I'll show you how and what you need for those configurations on the video cards. But let's go ahead and open up the case and take a look inside. Get back to the slides and get back to some of the pricing on this and some other details. Okay, let's just take a look inside the case here. Basic system. I like this one because it has lots of PCI slots here. I actually am running a M.2 card here. So I have an M.2 card in here running the operating system. It's not an EMB. But I do have this. This is a dual. It takes an M.2 SSD and an M.2 NVMe. So in the NVMe, the programs are installed just to have some little bit extra loading speed, and then the M.2 DVD or SD is what it's booting off of. So this is an option for these older computers where you can't boot off of an NVMe drive, as you can see here, though, there's plenty of room for hard drives in here, for SSDs. You can put them in here, you can add more DVDs if you want. One of the things that this case comes with sometimes is this handle is sitting here inside the case, and it just makes it so you can pick it up. But inside this handle are some SD railings here. Some of them come with this handle, some don't. You can always just tape your SSD down in here if you want, or you can get an adapter that goes in here for your SSDs. Now, one thing you will need to do on this one, and I'll show this in my video on when I show how to install memory. By the way, here's the memory here, and there's memory here. There's 8 memory slots. I'm running this in. I'm running four memory in here to give me quad channel memory. But one thing you do need in this system, you do need a fan here. It helps cool the system. The reason being, when they made these systems, they made them to use blower cards. And this is an example of a blower card. If you haven't seen one, most people probably know what they are. But the way blower cards work is they would suck the air in the computer out of the computer and out the front or the back of the card here. And so it would help keep the case cool. But in a lot of gaming cards, most of them are these fan types, and they just blow the hot air into the case instead of ejecting it out of the case. And so it just helps to have this fan here to help push the air out, along with the CPU fan and the power supply. And for gaming, I usually turn this fan up to the second or third notch in the BIOS to help move the air out of the case. But as you can see, it's a very efficient case, a very clean case. The version 2 comes with only one 6-pin, but I will in my video where I show how to install the video card. I show what because some of your video cards take a 6-pin, 8-pin, or like this 1080 Ti takes an 8-pin and a 6-pin, and I show you what cables you need to accomplish that in the system, along with 2 8-pins if you go that route. But that's all there is of the case. Again, like I said, these cases are built like tanks. But let's get back to the slides and go over more detail, the pricing, and more on the Xeon CPUs.
Okay, so let's now look at this again. And one thing I didn't mention before is I also found someone that had a Ryzen 7 3700X. Practically got the same results with the exception of 1080p medium. They got an 81, but the rest of them were exactly the same. A little bit, maybe a 69 here, but then everything else stayed the same. So what I haven't talked about is which CPU is in this system. It is the 2650 V2. You can pick this CPU up for $35, and we'll be talking about that more. Now, what you'll notice here, the Ryzen 5 2600. Well, let's look at these CPUs in detail, because on paper you wouldn't think that the Xeon E5 2650 version 2 should do as well. But this is the Ryzen 5, and this is just going on a CPU benchmark just to give me some scoring. So 13,000 in the multi-core single thread. There's 2,200, and then the E5 2600 around 10,000, almost 1,700 single thread score. Let's look at the Ryzen 7 3700X. You'll see this 22,000. The single core is almost 2,700. Again, comparing it to this. So the question is, why is a $35 chip performing better than these? And this CPU here is 100 and we'll go into pricing in a minute. So let's compare these really quick. Again, this is the E5 26 version 2, and its base is 2.6 gigahertz to 3.4 turbo. And it's 3. I believe it's 3 on all cores turbo. CPU is 35. This is running on, like I had mentioned before, the X79 platform. It's HP motherboard, the 16 gig DDR3 at 16 megahertz, and obviously the GTX 1070 Ti. So in these ones here, really quick, 3.4 to 3.9 on the gigahertz, and this Ryzen 7 3700 3.6 to 4.4. And again, so the Ryzen 5 CPU costs around 135, and then the Ryzen 7 3700X is around $300 and up. And this motherboard is just the one that the Ryzen 2600 user was using, and he had 16 gigs of RAM with 3,333 megahertz DDR4. So you would think that this system would perform better. Now, that being said, when we are running this card, the card is obviously bottlenecking with all three of these CPUs, but you'd still expect maybe a little bit better performance out of the Ryzen's over this $35 Xeon. So let's really quick, let's talk about why the performance difference here, and let's talk about, this is my whole argument, is that, and opening up your eyes to the Xeon world, you don't need a super expensive CPU to run 2K gaming, and even 4K gaming. Don't get me wrong, because so this is a good time to introduce. I'm going to be doing another video where I'm going to be testing probably 8 to 10 Xeons on the X79 platform, and then the X99 platform is a newer platform compared to the X79, and I'll probably be doing 6 to 8 CPUs on that platform. So it'd be good to see those tests, to see where the results of those, and then I'll be comparing them against each other, because there's a lot of value in running these Xeons. Now, when I talked about the pricing of those other CPUs, and I don't know what they were when they first came out, but this Xeon here, when it first came out, was a $1,300 CPU. And so now one of the discrepancies here might be the driver. Even though these testing was done in 2020, I did have a newer driver than them, and that could be the whole reason, or it may not. But my point is that you don't need to spend, again, the most important part of any system is the GPU first, then the CPU. So let's talk about the pricing of this system. So the HP Z420, and again, this is hit and miss on eBay, but you can, a lot of times, and I've bought several systems for $150 with 16 gigs of RAM on it, and so that's why I have this here. I just went on, and right now you know, looking around $200, but again, you can wait. Some of them have make offers, so you still might be able to get one. For 150, you might have to pay 165 shipping and that includes shipping and handling. But and if you're patient, you wait a week or two, there might be some available or one that you can make an offer on and get them for 150. But the CPU, again, is a $35 CPU. I went ahead and put in the ADATA 500 gig SSD. That's 47. I might have raised up to $50, but the graphics card 270, and I'm going to talk about the graphics card in a minute here as far as getting a used one. The fan 11, the fan cable 6, and then the graphic cable $9. This comes up to $528. Some of these systems have Windows 10 on them, so you may not have to buy Windows 10, but if you do, you can get it for $15 to $20. So really quick, let's talk about getting a used GTX 1070. Now, when I first started this, doing my testing for this video, I actually did this I probably started this, unfortunately, about 5 or 6 months ago. My channel's fairly new, so I had other videos that had to be put out first. But when I first started this, you could get this card between $240 and $270 all day long. But now with the GPU shortage, it's actually a lot harder. That doesn't mean you can't get one. I did go online. I have been following the auctions, and there was one that went for $250 that included shipping, and another one for $270. But most of these cards, unfortunately, are going for around $330 to $400 on auction. So, you know, if you're patient, you might be able to get one for that 270 mark. It's just unfortunate. And again, this also depends on when you're watching this. If you're watching this 6 months after I made this video, then the prices might have gone back to around that 270 mark or lower, depending on the new card situation. If they start getting new cards out. So unfortunately, you might have to spend more than that $530. It might be more in the $600 range. So just so you know, when you go look for one of these, you've got to type in HP Z420 V2, because then you know for sure that you're getting a V2. You don't want, because they made different versions of these, they did not change the model numbers, and so the V2 just means it's going to show up and have a V2 chip in it. And if I don't remember if I mentioned it, but I'm pretty sure I did, that it does come with a 600 watt power supply, which makes it great again for gaming and most of your video cards out there. Okay, so I mentioned it does come with a 600 watt power supply, but they also sold these with a 400 watt power supply. So make sure that when you look at these on eBay, look at the power supply and make sure it's the 600 watt version. Most of them come with 600 watt, but you could pre-order these with a 600 watt or the 400 watt power supply. So just be aware of that when you go onto eBay to look at these. So let's go in. So when you go in to buy one of these systems, these are CPUs that may be in the PCs, and if you get a 1650, especially version 2, then you don't need to buy a CPU. But most of the time when you buy an HP, those Z420s, it's not going to have the CPU in it that you want for 2K gaming. The 1620 is also a popular one again, but this one you're not going to want to do with 2K. So anything below 1620, anything that's a 1620 or below, you will not want to do 2K gaming with. Any of these, if they're in there, you can. Version 1 and version 2. The 1650, I'm not sure about the version 1, but version 2 for sure. So that's just a quick rundown. But again, I will have a support video that shows how to change the CPU out on these systems. Okay, really quick, so let's talk about building versus buying a used HP Z420. Okay, so we've already gone over the pricing here, but so if we were to build this, the Chinese make these motherboards at a reasonable price. The other manufacturers are $200–300 on the X79 motherboards. So at any rate, I'm at $100 on the X79 motherboard. Now you can get the motherboards for $65 to $70, and I'll talk about why I personally wouldn't choose those ones. But we're looking at $45 to $50 for a power supply, $40 for the 16 gigs of ECC DDR3 RAM, $50 for a case, that includes your fans and everything, $30 for the CPU fan. So we're already at $265, when you buy one of these $150 systems, all this is already included in there, and you're not building. So then on top of that, so let's go ahead and go over these numbers. So we're going to add the $35 for the CPU, the $47, the graphics card, the cable, $15 to $20 for Windows 10 key. So now we're at $640, $645, $650, depending on some of these other pricings. You may vary a little bit. So you're looking at $640 compared to $528, maybe closer to $540 if you have to buy a Windows key. So my whole channel is about making things easy. To me, it's a lot easier to throw in the graphics card into this used system that's already put together, maybe add some memory if you have to, and then add an SSD, than it is to build a computer from the ground up. And then let me just talk about this motherboard for a minute. Why I would not go also with, because you can save about $30 if you go with a less expensive X79 motherboard. The problem is with those motherboards is there's no support for USB 3.0. I believe it only has one SATA port that supports 6 gigabits per second. The rest are the slower. The rest are the 3 gigabits per second hard drive ports. But the advantage to these boards is that you can boot off of M.2 and NVMe. Now, also too, it only comes with 2 PCI slots, one for the graphics card, and then a smaller one for just doing an add-in card. So my problem is with this $70 X79 motherboards is that they're lacking features of newer boards today. To me, those motherboards really, I would only buy one of those motherboards if I was trying to build a small form server. But if I'm building a gaming case, I would want this. And let me talk about the dual channel memory for a minute. So these Xeons run quad channel memory. And when you're running quad channel memory, you do get better performance in your gaming in your frames per second. And so that's another reason. And there's only 2 memory slots. And that's why you're getting dual channel on these on those cheaper motherboards. On this X79 motherboard, it's $100. You do get quad channel, you get 4 slots, and you do get USB 3.0, and you get more PCI lanes, including, depending on what board you buy, 2 or 3 GPU PCI slots. So the other thing is too, if I was going to build a system from the ground up, I would not do it on the X79 platform. I would do it on the X99 platform, which my videos coming up, I'm going to be covering the X99 Xeon platform. And on the HP side, that is the Z440. They do cost more, and that's why I start with the Z420, because it's a great system to get into gaming, 1080p gaming, gaming period, up to 2K gaming. So, but the reason why I go with the X99 platform, you're going to pay a little bit more than $640, maybe $700, $680 to $700 to build an X99 computer from the ground up. but you're also going to have a lot more flexibility, again, because it's a newer platform, more powerful CPUs, more flexibility on the CPUs on that platform. So for me, there's just, for me myself, there's no way I would build an X79 gaming system. I would build an X99 gaming system, but I would definitely buy a used X79 Z420 for gaming, just because of the value that you get. And so, and we do run. My kids do have one of these also that they're using for gaming as well. So it's just a great value for the system. And again, Dell has their version of this. You can get those a lot of times for $150 as well. It takes the same CPUs, the same memory, and Dell's a great a computer to get. It's the T3610. So Lenovo also has their version as well. So I hope that's helpful, and why I would personally rather buy a used system. And even if you have to buy this system for even $200, to me, it's a better value than building one of these from the ground up. So what I want to show here is, because I said that there's, and again, I'm going to be doing a more extensive review on the CPUs for this platform, but this will give you an idea. So I did some tests with, and I just did this with Shadow of the Tomb Raider, the 1070 Ti, and I threw in a couple of different CPUs. Now this doesn't show the E5 2650, but basically we get the same results of the 2643 version 2 as the 2650. They're really close, and sometimes the 2690. But let's just go over these real quick. So the 2690 V1, that is the highest CPU you can get in the V1 series, and it is not a bad CPU. It's about $45, but again, you'll see that you start to get into some performance differences with the V2. So this one here is the E5 2643 V2. And then we've got the 2690 V2, which is a great CPU. And I didn't, we'll go over the cores on these in a minute as well. We'll because one thing I failed to mention is that the E5 2650 version 2 is an 8-core CPU. And these are all 8-core CPUs. Actually, the 2690 is a 10-core, and I believe the 2667 is a 10-core. But you'll notice here, my favorite one for gaming is the 2667 V2. So let's just, and you'll see a pattern here where this one outperforms the other ones, and in the 1440p as well, and in here, and again. So now what I did is I wanted to show the results of a 1080 Ti as well, in case maybe you have extra money that you could spend on the 1080 Ti. It'll give you better results in 1440p. But again, these are the results on using these different CPUs, and again, the 2650 V2 will fall in line somewhere in between these two CPUs right here. The reason why I start with that one is because that 35 price point is just incredible. But you'll notice here, and again on the Ultra 1080p, the performance here, and the 1440p on the performance of the high and ultra highs right here. This 2667 V2 is just my favorite one for gaming on this platform. So let's go over these CPUs really quick. So the 2650, again, it's an 8-core, $35. That other one, and I have it highlighted in blue because it's my favorite, It's actually $115. So later on, if you really wanted to, you could upgrade to this one. Now, I haven't tested this 2667. That will be coming up in my other test. That's why there's question mark here. Question mark in the 2680 V2. I'm kind of thinking it's going to get about the same results as the 2690. But you'll see the 2690 is 110. And to be honest, well, I'll leave that. I won't say anything until I need to do my testing and my results. So there is a 2697 that's a 12 core. It's $140. I really should have put question marks here too. I haven't fully tested that one out. That will be coming up in my video where I'm testing probably at least 2 more of the CPUs in this range, maybe 3, could be 4, because I haven't decided all of the Xeons I'm going to test in this platform, but it will be probably somewhere between 8 and 10 CPUs. But you can see that it's just a great value when you can get into one of these systems and then upgrade later on to the CPU if you want to. But again, just looking at the results here of the 1080, my deal is if I bought this system and I was buying it originally with the 1070 and I wanted to upgrade later on, and again the 1080 Ti is comparable to the 2070 Super. They're both about the same price right now used, but I would do the CPU, the GPU first and then the CPU later. And you will, like I said, you'll see here this 2643, there's a 10 frame per second difference here. But when you get into 1440p, that difference starts to fade, and partly because the graphics card is having to work harder. Okay, so let's talk about the graphics card that you can run in this system. I have my other video where I'm talking about 1080p AAA gaming at 60 frames per second or higher, where I use the 1650 Super. Obviously, you can use anything lower than this as well on the AMD or the NVIDIA side. And when I talk about these, I talk about also the different models. So it's like the 1660 comes with the Super and a TI, or it might just come with a Super, I can't remember. But the 1070, obviously the 1070 and the TI, the 1080 and the TI, and then the 2660 and the Super, the 2670 and the Super. Anything below an RX 580 obviously is going to run in here. But these ones you can run fine in this system. Now let's talk about some of the newer cards. So you can run an RTX 2080 in here, not a problem. RTX 3060 and the 3060 Super, not a problem. When we get into the RTX 3070 and the RTX 2080 Ti, these are, it's not that you can't, but you're going to be, your CPU is going to start bottlenecking more with these graphics cards. With these graphics cards, if you plan on going, and these are higher, then I might recommend getting into the X99 platform. And again, I will have a video coming out on that as well. The new RX 6800 you can run on this platform. The RX 68 XT again fall in line, and the 69. It's not that you can't. You're just not going to get as good of results in your frames per second because you will be bottlenecking the CPUs in this platform. And also too, with these, it's a 600 watt power supply, and that is borderline on running these cards as well, these newer ones. And in the video that I have, the support video, I show what adapters you need, and I obviously do run this 2080 Ti. This is going to be part of my testing on this platform, testing all the CPUs. But I would watch that video on because it will show you what cables and what you need to run these cards, because these take two 8-pins. So really quick, we have the pricing here again, and let me just conclude for a minute.
Okay, I know that this video was a little long, and hopefully you're still watching, but I just wanted to really get at some comparisons so I could show you that how relevant Xeons are in gaming in 2021, and for the price performance, it's just incredible. Normally, and this is the thing today, is that multi-cores is becoming more and more important. Not every game uses a lot of cores when they play, but it's getting more and more popular. And I usually don't get into a CPU anymore unless I'm minimum to me is 8 cores, which would be 16 multi-cores. And so you just get great value even with this X79 platform with gaming. And so I hope I opened up your world. Now please subscribe and like, because like I said, I am going to be doing an in-depth comparison of about 6 to 8 CPUs on the X79 platform, another 6 to 8 on the X99 platform. The difference of the X79 platform, it's a newer platform. It takes version 2 or version 3 and version 4. But again, the prices on these CPUs are just, they're dropping like a rock. And I think part of the reason why they're falling is because AMD is offering now CPUs with so many more multi-cores than they used to. And so it puts pressure on these used Xeons and is lowering the price on those, because so many people want the AMD CPUs now. But you get a great value with these Xeons. Now I do want to talk about the video cards for a minute. Again, that $270 for the 1070 Ti may not be as realistic as it was, 5 months ago. But what I'm hoping is, and I'm not saying you can't get one, but it's going to be hard. Most of these are going for auction now at $320 and higher. Like I said, I did see one go for $250, $270, but that is rare now. But this video might be being watched 5 months from now. So I'm hoping the used card market will calm down, and maybe 5-6 months down the road, you'll be able to get these again for $240, $270. The card I was demoing in here, I got for $240 used. Now, are there other cards that you could do in here? Yeah, you could do the RX 5600, but the problem is that card now is going for $400. So that's why I didn't go over that card there. Now, if you wanted to get into higher frames per second on 1440p AAA gaming, you could get into a 1080 Ti, which now is going to cost you around $500. They were dropping down to the $300 level about 3 months ago, maybe 4 months ago. And the 2060 and the 2060 Super, they were in the $300 mark as well used. And those will give you higher performance in 1440p, but now those cards are up in the $500 value range used. The only thing that I'm hoping is that NVIDIA did announce that they're going to be making the 2660 and the 2660 Super again, and hopefully inventories on the newer cards will get better as the months go by. But I don't really plan on seeing that happening until maybe June, which is unfortunate. So it's just getting harder and harder to get into a PC or to get into gaming unless you buy a pre-built. But even the pre-built, I went online, and a lot of the pre-builts aren't even available anymore. So this system here makes a great value. And I am going to be doing a comparison, because there is a Dell, the T3610 is the version 1, version 2. I prefer this one over that one, but although the Dell is a really good Xeon professional workstation, I just like the look of this one better, and it's a side load DVD player instead of a front load. And I do so much with DVDs and ripping that I prefer having where it loads on the front like this instead of on the side. So anyway, be sure to subscribe, like, hit the bell notification, because I am going to have those comparisons on the Xeons coming up. But thanks for coming to the channel. I hope this was enlightening and helpful. And this is TG with Tech Made Easy. Have a great day and happy gaming.
Now that was easy peasy.